one more time for our wonderful musician, Phil. That was such a beautiful song, I Dream of Brain. And as variable as the weather can be, we know that part of the perfect or imperfect essence of the world that we live in is actually the beauty that we get to embrace every day. So being able to come up after a song like that was absolutely wonderful. Thank you. And Mike, thank you for that reading. That was a very, very wonderful reading. Very well connected to my message today, which is perfectly imperfect passions. Well, what does that mean? We're living in this month where the theme is passion and purpose, and we know how important that is. But the ability to be imperfect and be okay with that is sometimes the nature of the flow, right? Just as Reverend Teresa probably didn't expect that she was going to have COVID. And thank you for honoring that. And we really, we're there for you. We want you to be, well as soon as possible. And to say that, you're all fortunate because you have a wonderful Reverend, very anchored in the material of science of mind, very heart-centered, very loving, motivational. And for me to be able to even just be in the chair sitting and listening to her is I feel always uplifted. So you're fortunate to, I travel around and there's a lot of other reverends and I love them all, but you really, really have a beautiful reverend here. And so even, yeah. So even though that sometimes the world does create something different, the flow is different. And part of that is being able to be okay with that is to be able to go with that flow. And here's the thing though, when we live what's called this life, we sometimes get conditioned by life, don't we? We can get conditioned up, socially conditioned. We try to fit in. There's certain social norms or cultural norms. Maybe it's through our family. Our parents wanted us to be something that we didn't want to be. And even conditioned by, religion, religious dogma. The very thought, if you really want to trick humanity, tell them God's outside of them. You want to play a joke on humanity, that's just to tell them the source that they must be subservient to or bow down to or be judged by is outside of them. And that makes you feel inferior. So we see this conditioning within the world. And the ironic thing is we're created in the image and the likeness of the one. But what do? We reverse engineered that. And we gave that one all the qualities of being human. Judgmental, angry at times, controlling. And the truth is that's not any, and it's, I remember when I was a kid listening to The Wrath of God, and I'm like, wow, that's very cool. He's got a raft? He can get down a river. Better than a canoe. Better than a... Or the preacher would say, the man upstairs, and I'm like, all right, this is a single-story building. How is that even possible? We get indoctrinated with different belief systems, and sometimes that controls us, and we try to be perfect into that belief system, and sometimes we got to let go of that. And so to decondition from the world around us and to accept ourselves as being imperfect at any moment allows us to fully blossom into our own innate being of light. And so to get there, I always call it those 4 permissions. Permissions is the permission to allow something different than what we've been trained or conditioned to believe. And those 4 permissions are basically the permission to be imperfect, the permission to be different, to not try to fit in, the permission to dream or to dream again, and the permission to allow the divine beauty, to allow that thing that is the sacred love that's within us, and to recognize that. Now the first one, the permission to be imperfect, that's a tough one for a lot of us. How many of us sometimes try to okay, I don't know if I can do this, everything's got to line up, I got to be ready. I train salespeople. When I travel around the world training salespeople, I'll show up and I have, in my mind, the day's already planned out. We're going to go out networking, we're going to meet people, we're going to go around to local businesses, pop through doors and say hello. And there's always this resistance. My business cards didn't come out right, or I'm not sure what I'm going to say, or how do I know how to answer that question they're going to ask? And I'll be like, well, what question is that? Well, I don't know. Well, let's go out and find out. And by the end of the day, typically we have some sales, we have quotes that we have to follow up on, we have a stack full of business cards, and it's a great day. And you see the enthusiasm of that individual has completely changed from resistance to not feeling good enough, not feeling ready, to accepting the little bit of, I'm not perfect, but that's okay. And to move. Zig Ziglar has a famous quote that if we wait for every light to turn green before we head into town, we're going to stay right where we are. And this is true in life, isn't it? Sometimes we just need to move. If we've got a desire within us, sometimes it's just, matter of fact, taking that first step. Even if we feel we're not ready. Spirit allows us to become ready, allows things to happen. And the second one is the ability to be different. How many people have had what you would call maybe a different child? People with children here? All right, so we see some hands. My second child. My first child, Nicole, very studious, went off in a direction where she's done very, very well, and so is Ashley, my second child. But she was different. And I had to embrace that, and sometimes that's difficult as a dad giving guidance. And so many things that happened early on in her life, and both my wife and I began to worry, yet she is a very, what I would call street smart person, very adaptable, very likable, but definitely doesn't fit any mold that you can even think of. And one of the things she said, we were sitting on the couch, and she said, Dad, I like dogs, I like pets. I'm like, okay. Well, I'm going to quit my job, and I'm going to start a dog walking business. And within a moment, she had this app called WAG. Are you familiar with this app? So she signs up to this app, and I didn't want to discourage her. I first heard that voice like my father used to use on me, and I'm like, no, this could be a good thing. And here she developed this business. Within a certain amount of time, she's like, can you develop me a website so I don't have to, give up a fee to this app? And she had pet sitting and a dog walking business, got referrals, and I was blown away because I helped to do her taxes, how well she did in this business. So the permission to be different means you don't have to fit in. Whatever that inspiration that's within you. And here's the other permission that goes along with being different, is the permission to change. Permission to change. You can change your mind at any moment. Just because you've been fixed in this, we're sometimes told that you got to pursue this career, you got to stay in this pathway. But sometimes we're ever evolving beings. I mean, I talked to Phil, and he told me about his guitar story, and he started off, I think it was in school, was it elementary school or beginning? Yeah, with a 4-string guitar that his brother shared with him. But then he told how he put away the guitar, but then the guitar came back, and then it came back in a rock band, and then it came back into church, and so here's a person that's blossomed in the avenue, but it took a different path. Some people would say, well, that's not perfect, that's imperfect. But the imperfectness is that divine expression, and a lot of times we evolve, and sometimes it's taken us down a completely different left-hand turn that we never thought of. And so actually it's like, after developing this dog walking business, and if you had seen my daughter at that time, she was roughly 50, 60 pounds heavier than she is today. And she decided that one of her other passions was to get fit. And she started getting into the gym, and she got around people at LA Fitness, I believe it was, where she was, and she got motivated by them, and she's like, well, I think I want to pursue an area of fitness. And this is, again, her changing her mind, and this is Dad, kind of saying, well, wait a second, you got this dog walking business. Everything evolved perfectly. It was 70 pounds that she lost. She made a decision to compete in the Ironman competition, which was last year here in Sarasota, and she took second place as a novice in the women's division. And she became a head trainer she got certified and became a trainer for LA Fitness. So everything is always evolving, and it's okay to change your mind. Because there is that sacred urge that's within you, that divine spirit that's within you, that's speaking through you, that's writing that next song of your life, and you need to be able to be okay with that. So the permission to be different is a big one. The permission to dream is something that I believe that sometimes we just don't allow ourselves to do. And the permission to dream is being able to go into the mind, into the faculties of imagination, and to begin to embrace it and to see it and not shut it down, even if it's just that one small step forward. You know, when we were kids, we did this thing called pretending. And ironically, the word pre meaning before something happens, and tend or tendency, you could tend a garden, right? But tendency is a way of being. I have a tendency to be this way. So essentially, we are pre-being, and we shut that down. We need to dream again, the permission to dream. Last week, I coached some people in speaking, and I don't know, I love to speak, but I love to help others get on stage as well. And I have a person, she's a friend, she's my prayer partner, she's a fellow practitioner, she's also in ministerial school, and we talked about her speaking, and she spoke last week at the Center for Spiritual Living, Cape Coral. She did a fabulous job. And I came down Saturday morning, we went into the sanctuary, the whole place was empty, and I got her on stage, and the very first thing I told her was like, okay, I need you just to stand there and shut your eyes and breathe into this moment. And she's kind of wondering, like, what's going on here? And I use this thing that I learned from Mary Morrissey, which she uses this thing called, what if it was possible? Has anybody ever taken the Dream Builder course? I think Reverend Shell just recently did that here. So there's this one thing where Mary Morrissey was going through trying to sell her house, and she had been taken over by the fear and doubt. You know, the market has changed, and I'm sure I can sell my house. Well, what if it was possible, and it only takes one? What if it was easy? Was actually the phrase she used. What if it was easy? And so with my friend Malika, who was getting ready to speak, she had a lot of fear, she had a lot of worry, she wasn't prepared. And I said, well, what if it came out okay? Instead of going to the word, what if it was great, what if it came out okay? What if it came out good and people liked it? How would you feel? What would be that feeling in your body? I'd feel joyful. I'd feel like it was a success. What would you do? What would you do afterwards? I'd probably go out, you know, with my friends and get lunch and celebrate. And you close your eyes and be in that mysterious space. What would happen? I'd probably get an applause. Can you feel the applause? Yeah, I can feel that applause. What if you know, somebody came up to you afterwards and said, I love that story, or I love that, you know, the fact that you shared that part in your message. You know, people sharing gratitude for you. How does that feel? And so I got her in that space, and I had her stay in that space for a while, because the faculty of dreaming really lights us up. It shifts us from doubt to confidence. It allows us to see the possibility. And as we know in this teaching, that it seeds the infinite mind into the moment, and ideas and clarity and thought and passions start to move through us. And if you go on YouTube, you'll see she did a phenomenal job. Phenomenal job. She stepped into her greatness. And a lot of that comes from that permission to dream. Permission to dream opens the doorway. And instead of using the I am statement, the what if it was easy? What if it was possible? And my brother's going through something that the doctors told him it was terminal. That's a tough word. And I know he's not well, but the conversation could be, what if they were wrong? What if there was another cure that we just aren't thinking of? What if there was others that had this and became better? Ironically, he was told he was already past the point. Actually, I think he was told he would only have a month. Now he's in his second month. He's gaining weight. He's starting to do better. So the what if enters that possibility where we don't shut down, and it's gentle enough to enter into our mind and to feel it in our heart. Where sometimes we have affirmations, it's like, I am this, and we don't feel that. But what if it's possible, and what if it's easy? And the last permission is that permission to allow, the permission to accept the divine grace that's already inside of us. If we combine the permission to be imperfect with the permission to allow, we don't end up in victimhood. We don't point the finger. You know the finger that we point? Sometimes we point that finger outside of us, and that's called blame. But sometimes we point the finger back to us, and that's called shame. Both of those are lower vibrational energies, and to be able to seek a transformational life and to live into our power, live into our greatness, live into our passions, it's important that we actually honor and allow this divine spirit, this divine love, to see that within us, to be able to love ourselves again, to be able to accept that, regardless of what the outside world has taught us, regardless of our upbringing, to know that that infinite spirit that's within all things, that created heaven and earth, lives, breathes, and exists within us. And that any day that I set off to do whatever it is, perfect or imperfect, whatever way it comes out, that I know that that is just okay. I don't need to beat up on myself. I just need to allow and to know that that divine spirit is within me. And I believe the biggest thing to do that, to anchor that, is gratitude. Gratitude, being grateful. Being grateful is one of those things. You can't be in victim. You can't be in fear, worry, and doubt when you're in gratitude. True? Yeah. So the very practice of being able to be grateful, grateful for this day, grateful for this moment, grateful for all things. There's an interesting book called The Luck Factor, written by Dr. Richard Wiseman. And at first when I looked at this was a study that was done over 4 years with, I believe, something like 400 people. And he actually took two groups, basically by screening them, finding out, what people think and believe that they are lucky, and this other group that basically believes that they are unlucky. Good things happen to this group. This group is kind of like, nah, nothing works for me, the victimhood group. And they did these wild and crazy tests, like they would leave, $10 bill in a coffee shop, and the person that was from the group that was unlucky would walk past it, practically step on it, not even see it. Guess what the lucky group did? They saw it. They picked it up. And they did so many tests around that, and they even tracked health, and they tracked things that would be what we call accidentals. And there's really no accidental happening in the universe. It's a divine, perfect universe. But yet there is they tracked this, and they found out, even though we're taught that there's no such thing as luck, right? That's where hard work meets opportunity. Well, the truth is, if you look at the word luck, it is very similar to gratitude. It's very similar to being blessed. If I feel blessed, I feel grateful, I feel lucky. It's a common word, and it's accepted in the English language. And sometimes they say, don't fight the word. If the word works for you, use the word. Because if you feel lucky, whatever you tell yourself, whatever you allow, that permission to allow, that belief allows you to blossom. Those 4 permissions will shift from being that place of feeling that we have to be absolutely perfect to being in that space of embracing the imperfection that is in life, that sometimes, some way, somehow allows us to truly share our essence and our beauty to the world. Let us take this moment into prayer. As I recognize there's this one divine source, It's the rhythm of life. It lives, breathes, and exists within all things. And whether we call it spirit, the infinite source creator, or God, it is that thing that allows the imperfection to breathe, to just be, and to blossom as that sacred beingness. And as I know that's within all things and it's created all things, it's created within myself, it's created within this community, both here in person as well as online. It's created within all humanity. And therefore I know that everything that is moving, existing, and breathing is the perfection of the universe that shows up as the divinity of that which we are. Our life, our moment, the blessings, the abundance, the joy. It's all of it. And it's always present, it's always on, and it's fulfilling every possibility within our life in that full allowance, in that full space of acceptance of our love. And in gratitude, I release this, and together we say, and so it is. Thank you.